Welcome back to the Sawdust Factory. The Christmas season is approaching pretty quickly, so it's time to start thinking about Christmas gifts for the family and friends. This time of the year is a great time of the year to use up a lot of your spindle blank scraps or the kind of offcuts from bowl cutting. In today's video, we're going to be making these smaller snow-covered looking pine trees. They turn pretty quick, it's a simple project, and it makes a great gift from the woodturner to any members of the family or friends. We'll be doing the video using some square spindle stock. Here we have some nice spalted maple, really lightly spalted. Makes it a really nice pattern down through the branches of the tree. Got a couple pieces of walnut, some smaller stock, odd shaped stuff. A blank of cherry that I was saving for a short tool handle. Always seems to be that I got more tool handle blanks than I actually have tools. And then a nice big piece of walnut that was an offcut from a bowl blank, and maybe even some Osage orange. We'll see how that goes. The first part of the project that you're going to need to take on is squaring up the stock and marking a center point. After we get the spindle stock squared up on the table saw or on the bandsaw, and then it's just a matter of marking the center of each of these for the spur drive or the tailstock end. I'm going to start by putting the spur drive in one end of the piece. I usually look and determine where most of the checking is going to be and try and get an idea of what features I want. Like for example here, there's a small branch pith. I'd like to have that out of the piece and not in the final piece, so I'll put that near the top. I want to put my spur drive on the base of the piece. I'll use a wooden mallet to tailstock up. And go ahead and seat it the rest of the way. We're going to rough the corners off using a spindle gouge to start with. We'll be doing most of the rough work with the spindle gouge, and then some of the finer work with a fingernail bowl gouge. It's a little bit smaller. I think this is a 3/8. And then for the cutoff work, I'll be using my just regular old cutoff tool. So those are the three tools we'll mainly be using for this project to do all the turning with. We're going to start the project by taking the shape down to kind of like basically a rough bullet shape like that. We'll leave about this much at the bottom that's just round, and then the rest of the blank will look like that, and we'll taper it down to a point that's about equal to what the diameter of the live center on the end is. Spindle turning really isn't my thing. I'm better with a bowl gouge. But when I do spindle turn, I always keep these couple things in mind. One is you always want to travel downhill towards the end of the piece. Don't ever come in from the end of the blank like this. You're sure to get a catch right away since you don't really know where the edge of the piece is. When you have a rough square shape like this and you're bringing it down to a cylinder, more speed is helpful. Now that we got our cylinder roughed out, we can begin to make our bullet shape. Like I said, we're going to start right about here. That way we got enough base for a trunk here, a small base of the tree, and then just enough for the chuck to hang on to. We're going to be cutting a tenon on this, and I've got my calipers currently set for the size of my tenon. I'm actually almost there. We'll be doing that with the cutoff tool here in a moment. And then cut the bullet shape down from there to there. Once you start to get the slope defined there, it's just a matter of taking progressively deeper cuts as you go from point A to point B to get that final taper you want. Alright, now that we got our rough cone shape here, and it doesn't have to be perfect, you can see I kind of got a lump right there. We're going to go ahead and lay out where the bottom of the branches will be that'll cut down to the trunk. So I just use my pencil and I kind of pick a point like right there on it, and what I do is just lay it so that this is even with the end of it. Turn the piece on a little bit. There's a point. There's a point right there. There's a point right there. And that's about the bottom, so about where we marked off before. So this particular pine tree is going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 branches. Okay, next what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and lay out the tenon and the trunk of the tree, which will be here, and then a line just at or below each one of the lines that we already laid out that is going to go to the depth of kind of like the base of the tree. Okay, now we've got the bottom of the branches cut out down to the trunk. There it gives you an idea how deep they are. We go from about, I don't know, a 1/2 inch to maybe 5/8, and then the trunk's just a little bit bigger. Now we're going to do the main branch work and switch back over to the spindle gouge to do that. When I do the branch work on the spindle gouge, I try and make a shape that's kind of like an OG shape. So I start with a concave kind of shape right here, and then taper it down, something kind of like that. One thing that you want to be careful is as you bring your spindle gouge into this surface, you don't chip a big piece out. That'll kind of ruin the general shape of your piece. So I usually start the spindle gouge work right about here, and then we'll go back with the bowl gouge and clean up this sharp edge here in a moment. Okay, now we're going to use our detail bowl gouge sharpened up to take away these steps down here, do a little bit of a chamfer right there, and then clean up any kind of flat spots we have, as well as just get the general shape lined out. I think the OG curve shape right here kind of gives the illusion or the effect of a snow-laden branch. So it really puts you in the Christmas spirit. So the last step we got to do on the top is to go ahead and sneak the gouge in and try and take just a little bit of material out from the bottom of each one of the branches. This can be a little bit challenging depending on how small of a gouge you have and what kind of grind you have on it. So I generally have the gouge really open when I'm doing this process, which is kind of scary. So just got to be careful as you go through it. And this right here is why you have to be careful when you got your gouge open real far. Just took a big old hunk of this one off. I'm just going to put some super glue on here and stick it back on there. This will be the back of the tree. Okay, the last step is to kind of clean up the base here and then get ready to put it in a chuck and be able to turn it around. I still have some tear out right there, so what I like to do with my bases is kind of put like a median line right here and then slope this way a little bit, taper that off into kind of like a mound, and then take this one and slope that way. And then after we get done with it in the chuck, we'll cut it off right here, and we'll just clean the bottom of it up by hand so that it sits flat on a table. Okay, the tear out's gone, so now we just need to sand it up through the grits and I didn't really cut my tenon correctly. I should have left a lip to datum the top of the chuck jaw out on, and I thought that was about right. It's actually way too long for my smaller chuck. I'm used to my bigger chuck, so the teeth on that are a lot taller. So what I did there was I lined the tailstock back up and pulled it off the bottom because the bottom of the blank wasn't really square to the exact axis that I turned the piece. So I've got it not sitting on the chuck bottom, kind of on this side over here, and that keeps it square. So now I can go ahead and pull my tailstock back out of the way, and it should rotate about the correct axis, approximately. We'll use a detail gouge for this. I also noticed there was a crack in the original blank right there that I kind of missed. So I put some glue on that as well. There, what I'm doing is just lightly stabilizing the back side of the piece. Because it's so long, I don't want it to bend while I'm doing this final cut. And I'm just going to put a final shape on here. Okay, so there's the final shape. Now we're just going to turn on the lathe real slow and put a nice coat of finish on here. Just using a min-wax fast dry polyurethane. Goes on nice and quick, dries pretty quick. Just going to turn that up to about 200 RPM and let it dry. Only takes a couple minutes. Alright, now that it's close to being dry, it's still a little bit wet, we're going to go ahead and cut off the base of this. I leave just a little nub and take my small flush cut saw and cut through that. Oops. And then that's all we got to clean up in order to get it sitting flat. Okay, here they are. Small grove of pine trees. Got 3 of these maple ones, one made out of the cherry that I had, and then I made one out of the walnut. The walnut one looks really nice. Got some live edge wood there. And the wood here, it was a little bit damp still, so I'm hoping that it won't crack. I sealed it up with polyurethane almost all the way, and I'm hoping that'll allow it to dry real slow and it won't crack, it'll retain its shape. It's still wet right now. I really put a lot on the bottom so that the end grain was sealed up good. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I learned a little bit more about spindle turning. Every time I pick up my spindle gouge, I learn something new. So try your luck at turning some pine trees as gifts this year. And if you like the video, give me a thumbs up. Check out my channel for more wood turning videos and subscribe. Thanks for watching.